In 1952, inside Cave 3 near Qumran, archaeologists came across something that did not fit with the rest of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was not parchment, it was not papyrus, it was metal. By then, the caves near the Dead Sea were already famous. The first scrolls had been found in 1947, and scholars had learned to expect religious texts, community writings, and material tied to the Second Temple period. So when this new object turned up, it already carried a different kind of weight. It was heavy, corroded, and brittle. Centuries underground had done real damage. No one could just unroll it and read it. And that is where the mystery really starts. Because when specialists finally forced the thing open in the mid-1950s, they did not find prayers or prophecy. They found what looked like directions. A list, specific places, hidden deposits, quantities of gold and silver, precious vessels, 64 separate locations. That is the central question hanging over the copper scroll to this day. Was this an ancient treasure map, or was it something else that only looked like one? The artifact itself is real. That part is not in doubt. The copper scroll is one of the strangest objects ever found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Even before anyone could read a line, it stood apart for one obvious reason. It was made from thin sheets of copper, not writing material people would normally choose for a text meant to be stored and read like a scroll. Copper is heavy, expensive, awkward, and after centuries in the ground, it had become so oxidized that opening it the normal way was impossible. So experts took a step that sounds almost violent now. They cut it into sections so the inscription could be read piece by piece. What emerged did not sound like myth. It sounded practical. The text described hidden deposits in dozens of places. Some entries referred to silver, others referred to gold. Some mentioned vessels. The directions used landmarks, structures, steps, ruins, cisterns, and measurements. The tone was not poetic. It was not devotional. It read more like retrieval notes written for people who already knew the landscape and only needed enough detail to get back to what had been hidden. And that detail is a big part of why the Copper Scroll has never settled down into a simple legend. Most legends blur when you get close to them. This one does the opposite. The more people look at it, the more it sounds like somebody was trying to preserve a usable record. That does not prove the treasure was real, of course, but it does explain why so many scholars, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have spent decades circling the same possibility. If the list was literal, then the wealth described on the scroll would have been enormous. Some estimates have placed the total in the modern billions. That number gets attention fast. But the money is only part of the draw. The bigger question is what those hidden deposits might have been. One theory says the treasure was tied to the temple in Jerusalem and hidden to protect it from the Romans around the time of the Jewish revolt. In that version, the Copper Scroll was not meant as literature at all. It was emergency documentation, a durable record of what had been concealed, where it had been concealed, and how someone might recover it later. Another theory moves the story away from the Qumran community itself and toward temple priests or other custodians of wealth. The reasoning is pretty simple. The treasures named on the scroll sound too large and too important to belong to a small desert sect. If that is true, then the Copper Scroll may be one surviving piece of a much larger crisis story, a record from a moment when people were trying to save sacred or institutional wealth before catastrophe reached it. And that idea changes the mood of the whole artifact. Instead of an old curiosity, the scroll starts to feel like evidence of panic managed with discipline. People hiding valuables quickly. People marking locations carefully. People choosing metal because memory alone did not feel safe enough. That may also explain the strangest choice in the whole story. Why use copper at all? Most Dead Sea Scrolls were written on parchment or papyrus. For an ordinary text, copper would have been excessive, too inconvenient, too costly. But if the information on the scroll was the kind of thing that absolutely had to survive time, moisture, decay, and chaos, then the decision starts to make sense. You carve something into metal when losing it would be unacceptable. That is one of the strongest arguments against the idea that the whole thing was purely symbolic. Still, there are serious problems with taking the list at face value. The biggest one is obvious. No confirmed cash from the Copper Scroll's list has ever been publicly recovered. That missing ending has kept the case open in a strange way for decades. Searchers have gone looking. Researchers have compared the listed measurements, the clues, and the geography. But the descriptions come from an ancient landscape, and that landscape has not stood still. 2,000 years of erosion, construction, looting, and political upheaval can ruin even the best directions. A landmark that made perfect sense in the 1st century may be gone now. A staircase may have collapsed. A ruin may lie under something modern. So even if the list was completely real when it was written, the map may now point into a world that no longer exists. There is another possibility too. Maybe the deposits were real, but they were removed long before modern archaeologists ever found the scroll. In that version, the copper scroll was never false. It simply outlived the treasure it described. That possibility gives the mystery a colder shape. Maybe the people who are supposed to come back never made it. Maybe someone else reached the caches centuries ago. Maybe the record survived when everything around it changed. And then, around the edges, the story starts attracting larger claims. Some writers have tried to link the scroll to First Temple treasure, or even the Ark of the Covenant. Those ideas are dramatic, but the evidence behind them is thin. The hard facts remain narrower than the legend. The artifact exists. It was found near Qumran in 1952. It was too damaged to unroll, so specialists cut it into strips. And once it was read, it appeared to describe hidden valuables in 64 locations. Those facts are solid. The meaning is where everything opens up. The most grounded interpretation is still the simplest one. The copper scroll may preserve a storage record from a period of instability. Temple wealth, community wealth, sacred valuables, something important enough to hide quickly and remember carefully. The text may have been written for a very small group of people who already understood the landscape and needed only a durable reminder. That explanation fits a lot. It fits the practical tone, it fits the material, it fits the specificity, and it fits the sad possibility that a retrieval document becomes almost useless once the world around it changes too much. What it cannot do is close the case. That is why the copper scroll still pulls people back in, not just treasure hunters, but historians and archaeologists too. It sits in that rare place where the object is real, the wording is concrete, and the final answer never arrives. You are not dealing with a rumor passed down and inflated over time. You are dealing with a physical artifact, recovered by archaeologists and read in the modern era. The uncertainty does not begin with whether the scroll existed. It begins with what the scroll was really for. And maybe that is the most haunting part of the story. Somewhere in the ancient world, during a time of danger or collapse, someone chose to preserve a list in metal. Someone believed certain places, certain quantities, certain hidden stores had to be recorded in a form that might outlast disaster. That decision survived. The people behind it did not leave us enough to finish the story. So the copper scroll remains what it has been for decades, one of history's oldest unresolved treasure hunts, and maybe something even stranger than that. A message from a world under pressure, still pointing toward valuables no one can say they have found. And after all this time, the ground has kept its answer. As always, visit us at readtherealstory.com for more unbelievable true stories. Until next time, stay curious.